My name is Reverend Bernardo, and this is my ED 508 Uttering Experience project. From my experience, I decided to do something that would allow me to see what it's like to live in poverty. I decided to focus on limiting my food. So I'm inspired by this quote, which basically says that there's a large percentage of families in the US that are living on $2 or less of food. So that is my goal. I've never really had to budget my food before, and not this much anyway.
For my experience, I decided to live the next 5 days off of $2 of food per day. For 5 days, that means that I would have to live off of a $10 food budget. Yesterday, I went to Harris Teeter. I planned to get potatoes, bread, peanut butter, beans, and some other spices, oil, stuff like that. But I actually spent $26.72, which of course is way over my limit. The thing was that I kept finding cheaper foods that I could substitute for what I was going to get. For example, the bread costs about $3.31, but I could just have bought bagels for a little bit over that. And yeah, bagels are more expensive, but they're also better for me. They'll be more filling. So I decided to get bagels instead of bread, and instead of getting pasta like I originally planned to, I found that rice, I could buy that at $1.17 for 2 pounds, which is really a good deal. In general, I found that canned foods were really cheap in general, but if I wanted to buy fruit, it was almost impossible because it's way too expensive. Fresh fruit, of course, was out of the picture. Maybe $1.50 or $1 per serving of fruit, which is more than a tenth of my budget. Same thing with canned fruits. Yeah, I couldn't find a good deal. They were $1, and I just couldn't fit into my budget. Same thing with snacks, and before I knew it, I was at my $10 limit, and I didn't have time to buy something like milk. It just wasn't an option. I mean, I'm a vegan, and I can't even drink milk if I wanted to, but I'm just saying, soy milk, yeah, it's really hard to do. It's really hard to limit yourself after eliminating yourself from from a vegan diet. Something to notice that since I'm a vegan, that means no meat at all. I mean, I'm meatless for a while, so there's really a big problem. And it'll probably help me in the long run, since my main protein will be from beans and rice. Eggs are pretty cheap. Maybe 75 cents per egg, which is pretty good, but it's just not something I can eat. What I have here is a spreadsheet of my food supplies. It helped me ration in food for $10. You can see before it was $16.72, which of course is way over my limit of $10. So to the right, I did some math and I proportioned the food for 5 days, which is from the peanut butter, the oatmeal, and the oil, and I came up to $9.96. So it's pretty good. My plan is to have 3 meals a day. For breakfast, I'll have oatmeal. For lunch, I'll have a peanut butter bagel sandwich. And for dinner, I will try to cook with rice, beans, oil, onions, and tomato paste. You may notice that instead of tomato sauce, I use tomato paste. The reason for doing so is that I felt that I was proficient enough of a chef to be able to make something for tomato paste. And it's also 12 cents about cheaper than tomato sauce, so it should work out. Today's my first day, so for breakfast I did have oatmeal, and it was filling. I mean, I'm always told that oatmeal is one of the healthiest things you can eat anyway. It's what supposedly athletes eat every day, so I don't have any qualms about it. Right now it's about 1 o'clock. It's usually my lunchtime hour, but right now I'm not hungry, so who knows. I usually have cereal and soy milk for breakfast. It's it's about 300 calories, give or take. It's healthy, fortified cereal, so I get my vitamins. Protein's there. With the oatmeal, I get everything except the vitamins. So it isn't too bad. Since I'm a vegan, I do need to make sure that I'm not deficient in nutrients, specifically B6, B12, folic acid, and omega 3s. But it's not really a problem. So my family invited me for dinner or for lunch at Southern Season, which, if you don't know, is a really expensive restaurant. I mean, for the typical person at least, it's not that expensive. It's not like a 5-star restaurant or anything, but it's like $10 for breakfast per person. That's a lot, even for me. Even without this budget, I would have when I wanted to go. They don't really have any vegan items anyway, but if I wanted to go, I could I could basically eat there about 20 times on my same budget I'm having right now, which it's ridiculous. It really is. I told them no. I wouldn't even gone there because I'm busy and it would have been a 50-minute drive just to go there. They offered to pay for my food. I told them I wouldn't accept charity. And it's just not on my budget. It's not something I earned. It wouldn't have felt right. Would have been cheating. Pure and simple. Today is day 2, which means I've already eaten dinner for day 1 and I spent the night on $2 of food. I found that after about 3 hours of eating dinner, I got hungry again. So since I didn't have any more money technically to spend on my budget, means I had to toughen it up and just go without food. It wasn't that bad, but it's just the first day. It made it hard to concentrate on my work and also to sleep. So, and when you have like a deadline, it's really, really, really hard to concentrate on your work when all you can think about is being hungry. It's an unexpected advantage of having food that I've never really given much thought to. I mean, it's just really, really hard. And I just couldn't imagine having to do this for a long time. It's one of those privileges that Macintosh would probably have listed in her article. I mean, I know it's not a skin issue technically, but it's definitely an issue of a socio-economical kind. So I spent too much on rice. I know that now. I'm I'm probably going to end up going to the grocery store to buy vegetables in place of some of the rice. They're cheap compared to fruit. I know carrots and some of the leafy vegetables will be cheap. I'm not quite sure why that is. For me, it just feels like it should be the other way around. I guess it's has something to do with the manual labor required for fruit versus vegetables. And also found that when you only have 3 meals and that's all you have, you always look forward to them. You look forward to breakfast, you look forward to lunch, you look forward to dinner, and you make sure that you eat every morsel of it. It's that important because that much more valuable. You know, the saying, you don't know what it is until it's gone, is deeply important here. So right now I am looking forward to my dinner, which I had to ration what I cooked. It's a little frustrating because I wanted to get more than what I was going to get. But for the food supplies, I only have about 7 servings of food. I know that sounds like a lot, but if I don't ration out the first meal, then I would have to make sure that for the second meal that I would ration them shorter. The last thing I want to do is have the last day with no food. It would be really bad. Again, it's something that I'm not used to doing. I'm not used to having to ration out my food. I mean, the only thing that is even close to that is having to ration out my food because I'm too lazy to go to the grocery store. And, you know, it's a completely different issue. Today's the third day, which means I spent 2 days on my $2 of food per day budget, and it's going okay at this point. I'm getting used to having strictly 3 meals a day. I get hungry before meals, but it's not unbearable and it doesn't really distract me too much. I know yesterday I talked about readjusting my budget so that I could have more money without being excessive. I found that I overestimated how much of each item I would actually need. And as a result, I spent way much more than I probably should have. I made a new spreadsheet where I found that I could save more than $1 of food by not buying as much rice, which isn't really that important anyway. Yeah, and that's how I will fit vegetables into my into my diet. It has a part to do with the culture here in America. You see one plate and you think that that's one serving. You know, restaurants, they might give you 3 servings of food on one plate, and the normal cultural ideal is to eat it, eat all of it, clean your plate, but that's way too much. It's excessive and really prodigal. Today's the 4th day, which means I have 1 day left. It's pretty late at night, so kind of tired, but I did have time to go to the grocery store, and I bought carrots and kale, as I said, for about 69 cents. I got about 0.6 pounds total. It's pretty good. I also bought some salad dressing. That's about 30 cents for how much I'm going to use. So I actually had a salad today and a carrot. So today I'm going to talk about Sotomayor's A Latina Judge's Voice. It deals with the diversity and how it affects judging and how it affects our decision making in general. So since I've been on this challenge for about 4 days, I've had a good sense of what it means to have a low budget for food, or just a low budget in general. I'm starting to see how it affects you and how it limits you. How at the start I had to cook. I still do. I can't go out at all unless someone pays for me. And it really limits you on what you can do, and it also limits how you value things. I had to know how to cook. I mean, I have to know how to cook anyway because I'm a vegan and it's hard to find food sometimes. But if I didn't know how to cook, it'll be really hard. I would probably have to rely on some of the more junkish food items like ramen and stuff like that are really easy to make, but they don't really give you good nutrients for your value. Junk food, as I said. And I had to know that tomato paste could be used instead of tomato sauce. It saved me 15 cents, which is a lot considering that's almost the cost of my breakfast. Um, and yeah, and I guess this also goes into a different article that I can't remember the name, but it has to do with the hidden roles of poverty, hidden roles of middle class, and the hidden roles of wealthy class. And I'm starting to see how a limit on your money affects your values and what you go for entertainment. I know usually I would go to fast food, or not fast food, but just like a restaurant like Chipotle, for example. You know, it's good food, it's pretty fast, but it's really expensive compared to what I have to do now. $6 would probably be the cost of a meal at Chipotle, but that would be the equivalent of 3 days in this diet. The reason why I even bring up fast food is that one of the values the middle class is working, and sometimes the best way to have more hours in a day is just to get fast food instead of spending time cooking. I know some people do it anyways, but I'm just saying that for some people, all they do is work and they don't have time to cook.
So I've now finished my othering experience. I did not write a fifth a fifth diary for the fifth day. For one, I thought that I already talked enough on the 4 days, and also I didn't have enough time to write a fifth one. I was really busy on Friday. So I'm going to talk about the limitations of my experience. When I went to Harris Teeter, I did not go to the other grocery stores, look at other options like the farmer's market, stuff like that. I wanted to keep the focus on just living on $2 of food per day. That was my focus. I could have found really good deals in the farmer's market, for example, but wasn't really my intention when I planned this out. Um, Also, this is just one aspect of poverty. I know I didn't limit my access to stuff like my phone, my computer, which I kind of needed to do my homework and do work in general. I didn't limit my access to television, clothes, and so on. I did, however, keep my normal schedule. I still worked out, even with with a lesser with a lesser content of food. And I didn't really have any problems with that. I still went to work and did things like that. Um, I already talked about how my family reacted to me doing this. I also told a couple of my friends I was going to do this, and most of them were really surprised, and they didn't think that was even possible. One of my friends is from Indonesia, I believe, and she said it's really common for people to live like this, even with $1 food per day. I didn't really talk about how poverty can be relative, but it is. There are people that even live off of $1 food or less. She said that she said that it was really easy to live off of $1 food in that part of the country. I can't really talk about that because I don't really have any experience with that. But anyway, um, yeah, poverty is relative, much in how like middle class is relative. Have people that just struggling to make ends meet. We have other people that have good jobs, you know, they have a good home, access to more luxurious items, have time and the money to go on vacation, while other people might not have that luxury. So I talked about limitations, and now I can talk about what I learned. I talked about how you need to be able to ration food. You need to be able to know how to cook. You need to be able to know what foods you can buy, what you can afford to buy, what foods you might have to cut out of, limit yourself. I talked about how I cut snacks out completely of my diet, and I try to get food, and I know it's important, but there wasn't really any way I could get them in. Again, it will be easy to do it if you buy in bulk. That's really a good tip. Just buy in bulk in general. It's a lot cheaper. I also overestimated some of the foods that I was looking to buy. I figured out that there was this bin behind where I was looking for potatoes, and actually I could get them cheaper than I thought I could. But I was just looking at buying them individually. So if you buy them in bulk, it's actually cheaper. I still think rice is cheaper. It's really hard to beat 117 for 2 pounds of rice. But yeah, and potatoes are generally more more tasty than rice. At least I think so. And that's really a characteristic of people that live in middle class. They look for quality over quantity. A lot of times I made few choices based on quantity versus quality. I made choices to buy grocery store brands, instead of buying my usual brands. I made choices to cut out some of the sodium, some of the salt, some of the spices that would make my food taste better, but it was worth it to be able to have more food. I'm more worried about being hungry than I'm worried about having bad food. And since I'm a good chef, I had a lot of leeway with that. I knew how to make certain ingredients work together, but there's no way of compensating for just ripping off $2 of food. Again, I could have gone to cheaper grocery stores and gotten better deals, which probably would have meant I could have spent more money on stuff like food. And you just look for foods that are cheap, like peanut butter. It's a good staple food. It's really cheap. You still want to be sure that you get your nutrients though. Oh, and also, I talked a little about this, but I'm starting to learn more about what it means to be isolated in a niche, because I didn't have much money to spend on food. Some choices were made for me. I didn't have the choice of buying food, like I said. I was stuck in having to do without food, without having to buy stuff like milk, stuff like good meat. I mean, I know I talked about I can't eat meat, but just in theory, if I wanted to eat meat, I couldn't. Or at least not that kind of meat. I had to look for stuff like canned stuff, like I don't know, Spam, Vienna sausages, I guess. Cheaper meat versus more higher quality meat. I'm not really familiar with how much each particular part of a cow would cost, but you have to go for the cheaper, less common parts of the cow used, or whatever, what kind of meat I would like to eat. For me, not having to do with meat makes things a lot easier. I guess that also has to do with poverty being relative. People that have to do certain things have have to um, have to buy them, have to eat them. But me, I have a choice in that. As part of middle class is, or as part of higher classes are having the liberty to say, I want to eat cheese today, and I'm going to eat cheese. Or if I want to spend a lot of money on, I don't know, on some kind of food, you can do that, and there isn't money issues. You have the freedom to do it. But if you're in poverty, you can't really have that liberty. You don't have that freedom. You're forced to do a certain thing because you just don't have any other choice. It's to do a lot with what they believe. What they believe is faith, what they believe they can change and what they can't change. And a lot of stuff they can't change, and there's really no easy way of looking past that. They say that education is the key to getting out, just getting out of a tough place, but it's a lot easier said than done at the end of the day. That's a lot of what I learned. Learn about the values. And this is just one aspect of poverty, but it's easy to see how this can easily be related to other parts of poverty. How the clothes you wear can affect the people you hang out with, or or the money you have can be correlated to what sports you play. Soccer is pretty cheap, or cheap. I guess shoes might be a bit of a problem, but compared to something like golf, that's more expensive. You have to go to a country club to play golf. They charge you for games. You have to buy your equipment. It's much easier to buy shoes, cleats, socks, and just go out in the neighborhood and play with people. And that also, in my opinion, has a lot to do with how friendships are formed based on the activities you partake in. I wanted to cover in the video. I hope that this video does a good job of portraying what I've experienced. I've learned how the money that you're restricted to can actually make a big difference. And that's it.